Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1468A, and today's date is January 10th, 2018, and the title of the episode is The WB Reports the Global Economy Peaked and Developed Nations Are in the Crosshairs. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. I uploaded an interview with John Rubino. It is on the X22 Report Spotlight YouTube channel. So all you need to do is go over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It will bring you right to the interview. Or go to x22report.com or newsentinel.com. Scroll down a little bit, look over to the right-hand side. You'll see the video there. You can play the interview right on the site. Or go to Steemit. That is steemit.com/@X22Report, and you can play the interview right on Steemit. Let's get into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the holiday season has taken its toll on many different retailers, and we see that Sears, they used to be the giant retailer, and now they're teetering on the edge of bankruptcies, and they had a very disappointing holiday season. And they've initiated new discussions with lenders aimed at renegotiating terms of the $1 billion of non-first lien debt. But they're saying if this can't be worked out, what's going to happen is they're going to have to declare bankruptcy. And what we're seeing is there's a lot of retailers out there that are struggling. Now, yes, the corporate media is telling us that the sales are better, but again, you got to look at the profits. We got to look to see exactly what has actually happened, and do these stores have enough money to make it throughout the year? Just to give a number of sales are at 5% compared to last year and they're up, we need to look at, are they up by 0.1%, 0.2%? Because last year sales were absolutely awful. But what we're looking at right now is that there's a lot of retailers that are still closing stores. A lot of them are quietly closing stores, which we reported on before. Now, we understand that everything the government, everything the cabal has done, everything the central bank has done, well, it wasn't to the betterment of the people, the everyday person on the street. Now, we know we have Social Security. We're supposed to contribute to Social Security because as we get to the retirement age, we're supposed to access that money. And they've been telling us for years that that money might not be there. And we know that millions and millions of people depend on it. A lot of the older generation who is retired already, maybe they didn't get a pension. They're living off of Social Security. And the Social Security Administration itself reports that 62% of recipients, they rely on the program for at least half of their income. And what we're seeing, this is coming out of the Center of Budget and Policy Priorities, it shows that without Social Security, 22.1 million Americans would fall below the poverty line. And that is just absolutely awful. And we need to remember, this money that we, the people, put into this, that wasn't the government's money. It's our money that we put into the system, which we're supposed to get back at retirement. But the government accessed our money once again. And we know that if they cut Social Security, which again is our money, they used it to fund, all their other entitlement programs, wars, and other things. And again, this leaves the people with nothing. And what we're seeing here is that people are living longer, which means you need more of that money to support these individuals. And what we're looking at is a disaster. Now, according to the 2017 Trustees Report, it looks like the trust fund reserves, they will be gone by 2035. And we're in 2018 right now, which it doesn't mean that here we're in 2018 and then everything is fine up to 2035. Every year from this year on, there's less and less and less, which means they can't support all these people. And they're giving us a date that this is when it comes to an end. That's it. And one of their solutions is a permanent reduction in benefits to all current and future Social Security recipients. And we also need to remember, and this is a really great point. Since the government has been telling us that there's low employment and everyone is employed, then we should see a lot more of these funds being put into Social Security. But guess what? Since the labor force participation rate is near multi-decade lows, that money is not being funneled into Social Security. This tells you that everyone does not have those high-paying quality jobs. Yes, they might have part-time jobs, and again, they count them as full-time jobs, but that means they're going to be putting in a lot less into the system. Because you need to understand that the entire requirement for Social Security to work means the following. Social Security requires 3 employed workers to support 1 retiree. And once again, if these 3 employed workers are not full-time and they're getting paid a certain amount of money, they can't support the 1 retiree. It just doesn't work. And in 2010, it dipped below 3 for the first time. And in 2013, it hit 2.8. And right now, it's looking at 2.2. And again, these are low quality jobs which cannot support the system. So if we put all this into context, we have a Social Security problem, we have a pension problem, we have an economic problem where everything's been manipulated, and it's showing up in all of this data. And it tells you there are major problems headed our way. Now, I think the elite, I think those who are in the inside and those people who might be on the run for various reasons, I think they all know this because something interesting happened. And this might not have anything to do with those people, but what they stole is very interesting. Now, we've been telling everyone, you need to have gold and silver because that's real money. And I'm talking about the physical gold, the physical silver, not the ETFs, nothing paper. Because we understand that you can use this later on. It ensures your wealth. When the dollar collapses or paper currency collapses, gold retains its value. Now, what's very interesting, if you're going to steal something, maybe they could have done it with cryptocurrencies. Maybe they could have, got a hold of someone's, address, transferred the money through cryptocurrency. It would have been there instantaneously, but they decided to rob Brinks of $11 million in gold shipment. Why didn't they steal $11 million in paper currency? This is very interesting because if you were in the inside, if you were an insider, you're an elite, and you knew what was coming down the pike, you would say, I understand. I need to get my hands on a lot of gold. And you can melt it down. You can recast it. You can do all different things with it. And this robbery is the 12th biggest gold heist in history. Now, this was stolen in December. Now, think about what's happening right now. We've been discussing it all with the petro yuan, with the dollar. There's the threat to the dollar right now. Other countries are moving away from the dollar. Why didn't they steal dollars? That's very interesting. Now, the World Bank came out and they have this new report, and the report shows a lack of investments, a slowdown in productivity, and tightening monetary policy. Now, the bank has raised its projections for global growth from 2.7% to 3%, even though they're putting out a warning. Now, the central bankers, they like to do this. They always tell you that, yes, everything's going to grow, it's going to be fantastic, except for these certain areas, and this is what we need to watch because they could bring down the system. And it warned that the acceleration in growth would be temporary unless governments implemented structural reforms to raise long-term growth potential. Now remember, they didn't mention anything about debt. They're really talking about is you need to do something because there's a huge amount of debt out there, and if we can't, rein this in, and pay for it somehow, the whole system's coming down. And what we're seeing right now is they're saying that the developed countries, they're the ones who are going to have the problem. The emerging markets, they are starting from the ground level and working up. The developed countries, they're the ones who have the problem because most of these developed countries are in a huge amount of debt. They don't produce that much anymore. And most of the countries are service type of countries. So let's put this into perspective. They're saying the emerging markets, the BRIC countries, they're going to be growing. The developed countries, well, their economic structure is in the crosshairs. They're going to have problems. And they're saying there's going to be a decade of gloom for these countries. Now, we know we're going through some type of transition. We know that there's going to be problems and things will eventually get better. But in the beginning stages, we're going to have problems. Now, yes, temporarily, with Trump's tax plan, a lot of the currency that are sitting in the banks in other countries, they're going to be flowing back to the United States, which is going to hurt those banks and those other countries, and it's going to prop up the United States. And if we go back in time, we've seen this right before the Great Depression, where Europe came down and the United States was in the roaring 20s and everything was fine. And then eventually it hit the United States. And I think this is what's going to happen. I think it's going to start on the outer edges and it's going to work its way in. What Trump has done right now is he's buying the United States some time. Time before the whole thing comes down. Now, when you bring in a lot more currency and you bring in investment dollars, you're going to see the economy boost a little bit. And we will see it boost a little bit before everything starts to come down. It's almost like a druggie who gets his fix, takes the drug, gets the high for a little while, but then can't find any more drugs, and then the whole thing comes crashing down. This is what we're going to see, but this is part of the process. This is what we're going to see happen here, because everything needs to be squared away. Remember, we're coming off a cabal system where everything was supposed to be completely different than what it is today. The TPP was supposed to be passed. We're supposed to have a court system that was above all other governments. The United States, the cabal, was going to be calling the shots around the world. They were going to try to usher in a one currency, one government type of situation. They were trying to bring in third world factory workers into the United States, because once you have a one currency and court systems above the governments, they call the shots. And what they're going to do is they're going to make everything even. They're going to even out the playing field across the world. That was their plan. And everything would be the same. Now, everything has to be undone. Everything that they've done in the past has to be undone. So we need some time to do this, because what I think is going to happen is Trump is going to make a move to get rid of the central banking system here in the United States. I think what's going to happen here is that the United States is going to be joining the One Belt, One Road system. Manufacturing will eventually come back to the United States. Maybe not in the way that we had it before, but some type of manufacturing, maybe advanced manufacturing, will come back to the United States. But before all this happens, the United States needs to be prepared for this, because we're going to go through this period of time where we're going to see this transition. And I think this is what is happening right now, where everything is being reversed. Everything the cabal, the central banks here, the Fed has been doing, everything needs to be reversed, and you need to have some time. Now, what we're seeing is that I don't think the central bank is going to, just go along with this. They've been ruling the world for quite a while. They've done this in the past. Yes, they've been thrown out of countries, but they found their way back into countries. And I think there's a battle going on, not just with the cabal, but with the central banking system. I don't believe they're one and the same. They work together sometimes, but they're not one and the same. And I think what's going to happen is we're going to see the battle increase as time goes on, because even though Trump is, fighting against the cabal, getting rid of those individuals, he still is going to have to go up against the central bank. And this whole thing is going to go on for a little while longer, and he needs to prep the economy for this. And the only way to do that, if you really think about it, is to pump the stock market up to make everyone think that everything is going well, get the tax bill passed so he can bring more currency, bring that investment dollar back to the United States. I mean, this is just a Band-Aid fix. It's not going to fix everything. It's only temporary. And it gives him time while he dismantles everything that they've put into place over the years. And then we're going to go through the transition. Now, is it going to be a hard break, a soft break into this new system? We don't know yet, because we don't know how this is all going to work out. So no matter what, you're going to need to be prepared for this, because we can see we're heading down this path. And if he continually does what he does, we're going to get closer and closer to that time where we head into that transition. Now, a lot of people back in the 70s didn't even realize we were coming off the gold standard onto the petrodollar system. Now, remember, the United States back then was the reserve currency. So the United States was the reserve currency. They were still the reserve currency. It just switched how the internal workings were working. The central bankers had checks and balances with gold. They got off the checks and balances and went on to their system with the help of the cabal. And we see right now that this time around, the transition is not going from the United States reserve currency to the United States reserve currency. It's going from the United States reserve currency to another country being the reserve currency, or an SDR, or something else. So this time it's going to be very, very different. And I think this is why he's buying time, setting things up, and making sure that we go through some type of soft transition where it doesn't hurt as many people as it would have before. But the soft transition is still going to be very difficult. And just like coming on to the petrodollar system, people couldn't find work, you couldn't get fuel. Back then, interest rates were rising. Now, we're going to have a different situation, because we're not trading one system here for another system here. We're trading this system for someone else's system someplace else. And that's going to make it a lot more difficult here in the United States. So no matter what, you need to be ready and prepared. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.